Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
All right. Rearrange the furniture. Hi, everybody. I'm Terry, an alcoholic.
Hi, Terry.
I want to thank Sandy for asking me to come and share tonight. And grateful like anything to be here. Want to welcome our new people. Welcome home. And congratulations to our Chip people and our birthday guy. Congratulations, Rick, was it? Rick. Happy birthday, man. Oh boy, it's been a little while since I've been here, and just glad to be up and just glad to be anywhere, I guess, today. I don't know what's going on, you know, it just seems like there's an inordinate amount of stress around these days. I don't know why. I see people going like this, so I'm thinking people can relate. You know, it just seems like everywhere I look, stressful situations are occurring around me and around my brothers and sisters in this program. And just so very, very grateful that I have a place to come and be, where I could actually be human and share the fear, the stress, you know, the loneliness, the joy, all of my feelings. You know, I remember when I was newly sober, 6 months sober, I was having one of those nights, and I'll tell you, I was just coming undone. My inside felt like, to me, it was like crawling. I was crawling out of my own skin. And I remember calling my sponsor, and I said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm crawling out of my skin. My sponsor said, relax, Terry. He said, you're having a feeling, you know. Because I had never felt anything. Never, ever. Anytime I ever felt anything, I immediately anesthetized it as quickly, and as effectively as possible. And I did that with a number of things. But I'll tell you, my drug of choice was alcohol. I loved what alcohol did for me. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and that's why I'm alcoholic. No, Irish Catholic family, and that's why I'm alcoholic. My mother's name was Ryan, and my father was a police captain in New York, and he was English and very rigid and by the book, stiff collar, you know, just very square meals, very regimented, march to the dinner table, you know. He had me doing the times tables forwards and backwards by the time I was 5 years old, like drills, you know. I remember I would come out of the bathroom and he'd say, you know, what's 5 times 10, you know, and can I flush first, you know, I mean, it was... He had me going, and I guess the best way to describe my childhood would be one word, and that's tense. I mean, like, just really tense. It felt to me that I was put here on this planet, but didn't belong here. It felt to me that everybody knew the dance, and I didn't know the steps to it. Everybody had a book of instructions, and they ran out of a copy before I got to the line. It just seems like I didn't know how to be, you know. And Dad taught me how to do real well. But I was like in Brooklyn, New York, trying to fit in to this crowd of kids in school, you know, with the taps on the shoes, you know, the collar turned up, you know, cigarette in the mouth, 4-letter words, but scared inside, real scared. You know, and not even knowing it was fear. and not even allowing myself to feel fear, because in those days, you didn't say you were afraid if you were in Brooklyn, New York. We beat up guys that said they were afraid in Brooklyn, New York. You know, it didn't happen. So I just had to walk the walk and talk the talk and not really connect with who I was. As a matter of fact, I didn't connect. I'm in the process now of connecting with who I am. For many, many years, I thought I was this, I don't know, just this like, just this crazy idea of like John Travolta or just some kind of, I would see TV character, or I would see a guy that I thought was really cool, and I would just imitate these people, you know, because I really didn't feel any sense of self at all. So I would find out, hey, that guy looks pretty cool. And I start to like walk like him or talk like him, or, you know, without any sense of who I was myself. And, you know, it was never enough. I would bring home B's. Dad would say, you know, where are the A's? I grew up in a Catholic family that, you know, it was funny because I grew up around a lot of Italians, and they were always like, I love Italian families, because they're always like, hey, come on, you know, they'd hug each other and sit down, eat pasta, you know, and really love all over one another. In my family, it wasn't like that. You know, I grew up in this Irish family. Everybody walked around in their own little bubbles. I mean, we all shared the same space in the house, but everybody was living different lives. And nobody was talking about feelings. Nobody was talking about nothing. And my mom, what she used to do is she had a women's club, okay, and she'd invite the girls over. About every month or so, she'd have her women's party. And I'll tell you, man, those parties, we had an Aunt Tilly who was like 92 years old, and Aunt Tilly would make the stiffest Manhattans in New York. And she'd bring over the batch. We would literally carry Aunt Tilly out with her Manhattans. And the girls would proceed to just have a real one hell of a party. You know, just rock the house and rock the neighborhood. We would literally carry those women. The husbands would pull up in the cars, and we would carry these women out into the car. You know, and I thought, this is pretty cool, you know? You know, and meanwhile, Dad is like, you know, real stiff and rigid and uptight, you know, angry. You know, my dad wasn't prejudiced. He hated everybody, you know. And he was always like, he wasn't exploding, he was imploding, you know. He was imploding. He never drank. And interestingly enough, he died when he was 57 years old. And, you know, this is a man that worked his ass off from, you know, just from being a patrolman to a sergeant to a lieutenant, took all the tests, drilled, you know, himself, you know. He had a big family to support. You know, he did a great job doing that. You know, he did a fantastic job doing that. But just when he got to the point where he could really start to relax and enjoy himself, and he got all the material things, you know. He bought the couch with the plastic on it and those Roman gods, you know, around the house, you know, and just when he thought he had everything, he got cancer and died. An interesting deal, you know. He taught me a very valuable lesson. A lesson that, you know, has to be experienced. Has to be experienced. You can't be told, yeah, I had to see that. That's not it. That's not the reason I'm here. I'm not here to, like, get a 9-to-5, work my ass off and die at 57 years old. That ain't gonna happen. But anyway, you know, here I am, like, not fitting in, tense, very tense. I was what I did in my father's world. I had to, like, do, BDD. I had older brothers to live up to. I had an identical twin brother. I still do. He's a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Actually, we got a lot of anonymous people in my family. There's only two types of people in my family: those in anonymous programs and those that need to be. You know, it was just a crazy world. It was just a crazy world, and I needed out, and I didn't even know it. I honestly feel I was an alcoholic before I ever took the first drink. I honestly felt I needed a drink at 5 years old, you know, and I didn't drink till I was 13. But when I did, I had a spiritual experience. It was absolute magic what happened to me. I still remember it. You remember it? incredible. I had just an incredible experience. All of that fear just like melted away from me. You know, all of that self-conscious, introverted thought patterns of thinking about how do I look and how am I doing and am I enough? And all that, you know, my eyes actually started looking out rather than in for the first time in my life. And I started actually being able to feel like, oh man, you know, I finally fit. And it felt real good. It felt beyond good. It felt like all the worry was gone, all the anxiety was gone, all the fear, anything was possible. And I was the man when I drank. I became the man when I drank. And all of a sudden those taps got louder, the collar got pushed up there, and I could be or do anything I wanted to do. And it really worked for me. So alcohol really did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I've always had an abnormal reaction to alcohol, but didn't know it then. Really didn't know it. You know, I drink in the schoolyard, and the first time I drank, I got drunk. Okay, the second time I drank, I got drunk. And I don't understand people who do drink and don't get drunk. I have a friend of mine that says he never understood social drinkers. He said his idea of social drinking is when somebody said, I think I'm going to have a drink, he said, so shall I. That was his idea of social drinking. And that was mine. I never understood people who lost drinks at parties. Did you? I never lost a drink at a party. Never. Once. Ever. You know? I knew where mine was all the time, and I knew where yours was, and I knew where the supply was. I knew everything about it. And then, you know, the 60s hit. And what could I say, you know? The 60s hit in New York. I went to Woodstock in 69. I was eating LSD like M&Ms. I went to Woodstock in a van full of glue sniffers, and I was high on 2 blotters of LSD. And it's not a good scenario, you know. I was just like, you know, and these guys were sniffing glue in the van, driving up to Woodstock. When I got there, the only thing I could think about was getting to a liquor store, okay, because my nerves, I was completely shot. So I went to the liquor store and bought Spinata. Anybody ever remember Spinata? Boone's Farm apple wine, you know. Never saw a grape or an apple, you know. But I bought a couple of bottles of Spinata, and I sat in a stream. I know, it's nasty stuff, but what are you going to do? Drank it up. You know, I drank it up, and I felt better. And I felt better, you know, because all of that tenseness from the LSD, just from my friends, I left those people. I don't know what happened to them, you know. And, you know, just started actually getting heavily into drugs. And the people I hung out with, they looked down upon people who drank. You know, they were hippies. They didn't want to, like, it wasn't their deal to drink, you know. But every once in a while, I would sneak off to my friends or sneak off to our place, the local pub, and get drunk on my ass, because this was my drug of choice. When I wanted to be comfortable, I went and found alcohol, okay? I was dealing dope in a park in Brooklyn, New York, and a friend of ours, Rock Bottom, he moved out to Haight-Ashbury, and we thought we'd go out and find Rock Bottom. So we heard everything was free in California, right? I heard, you know, fruit grows on trees, and it's free love, and free dope, and free music, and we thought the Dead played for free every day, and so we came out here, and we moved right into Haight-Ashbury. What a deal. An incredible deal. I never really knew what I was dealing with. I never knew that I was dealing with the deadly, toxic disease of alcoholism. What happened was the disease of alcoholism is progressive, and it slowly got worse and worse and worse. And I didn't even understand what was going on. But I knew every time I drank alcohol, my predicament was totally unpredictable. I could wind up in the strangest of places with the strangest of people doing the damnedest things, you know. And pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization started to set in. And I mean, like, even in the very, very beginning, you know, I would go to bed with Pocahontas, you know, and wake up with Hatchet Face, you know, just... You know, I wind up in jail. I remember waking up in a padded cell, and not knowing whether it was like an insane place, an insane asylum, or a jail, and it turned out to be a jail, And I remember when they were releasing me with the little bag, all my personal stuff were coming out, and I saw a $20 bill, and I knew where I was going right out of that jail. And the funny thing about it is, a friend of mine picked me up, and he was amazed when I said, "Stop by the liquor store." He was amazed. But I knew I had to have a drink. I had to have a drink. It's not like, oh, I think I'll have a drink and we can be social together. I had to have a drink. You know what I mean? It's not like, let's have some wine, and talk about theater, I mean, I needed a drink, I mean, I loved alcohol, and I loved what it did for me. The only problem was it was killing me. It was absolutely killing me. And I want to tell you that I am the type of alcoholic that could not stop. That doesn't mean that I drank every day, because I didn't. I'm a periodic alcoholic. And I don't know if there's any periodics here, but what I would do is I would go on this horrendous binge. Just like, I'd build up like $300 in my checking account. I thought, that's a lot of money, right? $300, right? And then, boom, for some reason, I would pick up a drink. And I would go for as long as I could go. Just as long as I could go, And I would drink and use as much and as often as I possibly could. Until it was over. And I never knew when it was going to be over. It's not like I made up my mind when it was going to be over. Oh, it's going to be over on Sunday night at 5 o'clock. I'll watch 60 Minutes, sober up, and go to work on Monday. Because I'll tell you, that never happened. It never happened. Sunday night at 5 o'clock would come by, and let's just have one more, And one more, and one more. In other words, friends, the choice was not mine. And it had been a long time before I had any choice. As a matter of fact, whenever I picked up a drink at all, I never had a choice. Because I experienced the phenomenon of craving. And I never knew what that was till I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. When I read the doctor's opinion and it talked about the phenomenon of craving, I knew that that was me. The big book was talking directly to me. I remember sitting at Sloppy Joe's, pounding down some beers with my friend Bruce. And my friend Bruce would get a call from his wife. He'd come back, he'd say, "Dinner's ready, I gotta go." And I'd look at him like, how do you do that? And how do you go? How do you have the power to get up now, okay, get in your car and go home and eat dinner with your wife? I mean, I never had that kind of power, never. I stayed until it was done, And things got progressively worse, and I started losing the job and crashing my car into MGM Wall, and I remember I was at Ships. Remember Ships? Starbucks is there. Remember Ships? I remember I don't even hardly remember being there, but I guess I went there for a sandwich. But I remember two hitchhikers wanted a ride, and unfortunately they got in the back seat of my car, and I blacked out and hit MGM Wall. And when I came to, the fender of my car was against my windshield. And I just turned back to them and I said, "It's the last stop," And they were like, with their backpacks in the car and stuff. And I got out. I left it. I've never seen that car again. Nor those hitchhikers. I don't know whatever happened to them. But I got out and went to Big Ed's, And, Big Ed's was a wonderful place. I know some people here, I know Papa Joe, but I know some people here have been to Big Ed's. If you've seen the movie Barfly, that's where they filmed Barfly in Big Ed's. Really nice place. Yeah, and they used to 86 me out of that place. You get 86 out of there, you're in deep trouble. Deep trouble. But I didn't know what was going on, I'm getting fired, the wife is throwing me out, I'm an embarrassment to my kids. I've completely lost all my self-respect, whatever I had, And I couldn't understand why I couldn't stop drinking. Or when I picked up any alcohol, whatever, I was off to the races. I could never understand that. I just thought that I was just one of these guys that went down the wrong road, one of these lowlifes that, And it was getting really bad. I was winding up at Bropman Hospital with IVs and vitamins and Libriums, and they tell you, now don't eat these, don't drink with these now, And as soon as I get out, they say, take 2 every 4 hours. That means take 4 or 6 every 1 hour. Boom, you know, and I'd drink them, you know. I'd always drink with it. I was sneaking out of my house one day, and 2 guys, friends of mine, were on the porch, and they said, "You don't have to live like this anymore." They had been to a few meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they took me to my first meeting in 1978, the Marina Center. And I can't tell you really what was said that night, but I do know that finally I felt like these people really understand the kind of drinker and user I am. They really understand a guy like me, you know. And when we said the Lord's Prayer, I was shaken, and I remember these guys stood near me, and I could tell I was like embarrassed because I was shaken, and they just grabbed my hands, man, and held on, you know. They just grabbed my hands, and I knew right then, you know, that these men and these people knew what kind of drunk I was, you know, and what alcoholism was about. And I thought if they knew that, maybe they knew about a solution. And they made a big mistake that night. They told me to keep coming back. And they don't tell me to keep coming back at Big Ed's, I'll tell you that. And finally, I found a place that wanted me back, you know. I don't know if any non-alcoholic really understands that kind of loneliness and despair when we're at the bottom of that. And you hear a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous of people hitting their bottom. But I hit the bottom, bounced a few times, and scraped along for about 5 years before I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. That's the way I feel. And when I got in, I thought, hey, far out, this is great. Clean and sober people for me to hang out with, because all my friends are using. They're all using. I remember I went to my second meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I went home, went next door to my friend's house, and they're having this huge pot party, you know, and they're passing me joints, right? And I'm passing them because I'm not smoking it, right? But I'm thinking, you know, this isn't a very cool idea for me to hang out here, you know. I needed new friends. I had no friends that didn't drink and use the way I did. I never hung out with people who didn't drink and use the way I did. What am I going to do with people who, like, sip wine? Get out of here, you know? I mean, either drink it or throw it over the fence or something, you know? So I started hanging out in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was even lighting birthday cakes at the studio group down here. And I just wanted to just kind of hang out, and I call that process in my sobriety osmosis, because I really just wanted to sit my ass in the seat and absorb as much recovery as I could, not do really any work. I wasn't interested. I heard the steps. You know, I heard chapter 5 every meeting, you know, but I was I'm cool with osmosis right now, okay, you know. And, you know, my sponsor would say, you ready to work the steps, get into the real program of action, you know? Yeah, right, you know, the second Tuesday of next week, we're on top of it, you know? And I thought, hey, I'm staying sober, you know? I'm staying sober. Osmosis is, you know? Only didn't work. I'd get 2 months, and I went out again. And then I got 5 months and went out again, and 8 months and went out again. I remember it was Christmas, and my best thinking, I hadn't worked any steps, but my best thinking told me that I should go to New York and spend Christmas with my Irish Catholic family in New York, who were all drinking, by the way, at the time. And I hadn't worked any steps. I got there, I lasted maybe 20 seconds. 20 seconds, you know, I drank. And I remember flying home, and I had been around, I should say, Alcoholics Anonymous for maybe a year and a half at that time. And I remember flying home, and I remember actually crying on the plane. I was in so much despair over the fact that, you know, what's going on with me? You know, how come I'm not getting this? You know, I don't understand. I'm coming to the meetings, I'm lighting the cakes, I'm even bringing donuts on Tuesday night, and here I am drunk again, you know. And I'll tell you, it takes what it takes for a guy like me, and it took what it took. And at that point, I really became desperate. And I like what Rick said. And he said, it's a gift of desperation. And God, is it ever? And actually, gift of desperation spells God, doesn't it? And I never want to forget that desperation. Never, never, never. I never want to be, you know, a person who thinks that I know something in Alcoholics Anonymous. I never want to forget what it was like when I came in here. because I was so desperate, I was so absolutely desperate, that I was even willing to do whatever it took. And you told me to, push a peanut across Venice Boulevard with my nose, man. I'm on it. I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to do whatever it took. And so we began the process of the steps. I'd like to tell you that I came back from New York really determined, because I wasn't. I'd like to tell you, but I was real determined. I rolled up my sleeves, got to work on the steps, and, I did the steps, and just see now how sober I am, It didn't work that way for me. It honestly didn't. I came back totally defeated, with no hope, no hope. I was absolutely hopeless. I had nowhere to go, and I knew that I couldn't stay sober on my own. And I knew the way I was working the program wasn't working, and then I knew I was going to drink again. I knew it. I've been around AA for how many months now? A year and a half, and it ain't working. I'm still drinking. I knew I was going to drink again. But I haven't had a drink since then. That was 19 years ago. And I know for a fact, I'm here to tell you, I know, you may not, but I know for sure that it has very little to do with me. I know that God blessed me with sobriety that night, that day. And it's a blessing. I believe honestly that sobriety is absolute gift from God for me. But I also know for a fact that I have to continuously put myself in a position to receive that gift. And that's why I come and do this. And that's why, alcoholic addicts are my people, man. Because you know my brand of insanity. You really know my brand of insanity. I mean, I don't think like Mr. Normie out there, Joe Schmo out there. I was talking to my twin brother today, and he was thinking about running out and getting on antidepressants, and he's telling me how angry he is and how he hates everybody. And this is a man, he's 15 years sober, and how angry, he lives in Texas. He's angry, he hates everybody, he just, and I said, have you ever sponsored anybody, Rich? And he said, no, he's never sponsored anybody in 15 years. And I just said, the whole program of Alcoholics Anonymous is based on one alcoholic reaching out and helping another. It's just that simple, Because I don't know about you, but I have all these problems, right, or so-called problems that I think I have between my ears, And, I've got this ability to tunnel vision. I could be having a beautiful life, but I've got this one little problem here. And I tunnel vision into that problem, and the more energy I put into that little problem, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And pretty soon, I'm walking around with this cloud of problem over my head. And I don't know any solution. I don't know any other solution. And the big book talks about it. And it talks a program that works in difficult times, I don't know any other solution but reaching out and saying, what's going on in your life? Because for that period of time that I'm interested, I go down to Weingard Center and snuggle up to some guy with like 2 days. And I can see that gift of desperation in his eyes. He has to have this thing. He doesn't just want it. He just didn't get one little 502. He's got to have this thing or he's going to go out. He's going to fucking die, right? I love those kind of guys, because I see God in those kind of guys. That desperation just inspires the hell out of me. Because you know what? That's me. That is me. I am that same guy, Only by the grace of God am I sober today. And when I go work with that guy, right, just talk to him. Just talk to him and be his buddy. And just say, you know what? I have been there. I have absolutely been there. I know what you're going through, bro. I know that sense of loneliness and desperation and despair and hopelessness that you're feeling right now, because I've been there. But you know what? The good news is we also share a common solution. So come on, buddy. A seat's waiting for you in Alcoholics Anonymous, and this program absolutely works. And when I leave there, I've got no problems. I've got no problems, And it's funny, I have that ability to focus on all those little things that I think are so damn important in my life, Like I'm a salesman, and my sales haven't been so good lately. So I'm just, I'm just this chronically milking the mouse, milking the mouse, Oh, my sales aren't very good. Or, she's leaving me. Just constant stuff, a constant barrage, in my head. And in chapter 6 in the big book, it doesn't say into thinking. It says into action. And I've learned that I really have to take action to shut this damn thing off for even 5 minutes and get some peace. And it really, really works. It's a program of action that really works, And I suggested that to Richie today. And then he went to the doctor and got Wellbutrin. So, I know, what am I going to do? What can I say, What can I say? Anyway, the steps really, for me, is the real program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was around, like I said, a year and a half in AA, but really I was the same guy that I was. A year and a half later, I was the same exact guy I was the day I walked in, because nothing had changed on the inside. Nothing. I was still the same old character. I was dry, but I wasn't sober by any means. And the steps really, for me, are designed to actually allow me to connect with a loving higher power in my life, which will give me the power to stay sober. Because on my own, I don't have the power to stay sober. And lately, I have really been learning the meaning of the second part of step 1. I thought, honestly, that this program was about not drinking or not using. Yeah, it's about that. In the beginning, it's about that, But alcohol is really mentioned only once in the whole 12 steps, the first part of step 1, I thought, honestly, that I would come in, stop drinking and using, and my life would just turn beautiful, man. That she'd come into my life, and I'd get that 6-figure job and travel the world, and, none of that has happened. A lot of wonderful, fantastic things have happened, but not what I thought was going to happen. See, I have living problems. I have thinking problems, okay? Alcohol was a symptom of my disease. Alcohol is what I did to treat my disease. I am by nature a restless, and I mean real restless, irritable, and discontent guy. I am a chronic discontent. The world out there, people, is not enough for a guy like me. There ain't enough anything out there for a guy like me. There wasn't enough booze. There certainly wasn't enough drugs, I mean, women, there ain't enough women out there. Food, there ain't enough women. Whatever it is, okay, it ain't enough for a guy like me. And I always used to think the solution was from outside in. If only I got this. If only I got that. The house, the woman, the car, the money, blah, blah, blah. False gods. All of them were false gods. And I chased them all down, right, till they all hit the wall and crashed and burned. And I realized, you know what? This ain't the way. This ain't the way. That ain't the way. It ain't going to work for a guy like me. It doesn't have the power to bring me lasting happiness or peace or serenity, And then I heard God could and would if he was sought, And that's been my path. I mean, it's been my path. It's been my sponsor's path. And he has shown me, not by words, but by example, on how to live a clean and sober life with integrity and honesty, It's an amazing deal. Amazing deal. It's not really, I thought if I just take care of drugs and alcohol, I can control the rest of my life. And I realize now that I can't. That I can't. And I'm getting a whole different idea of what's just going on here and why I'm here on this planet. I don't want to get too metaphysical on you, but I'm getting a whole different idea of the reason, real reason I'm here. I really understand, and I'm clear about the fact that I needed to go through what I needed to go through in order to actually give back and to be a giver and not a taker for the first time in my life, and to be able to actually give something of value, of real value, not just, hey, you know, you want this money or you want this joint or, you know, whatever, you know, but had something of real value to give. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous has enabled me to do, is actually to have something that I can live for, and to be a person that has something to give. And that's an amazing gift, because I have a purpose in my life now. You know, I sell office products, but, you know, people go without Post-it notes for a day, it ain't going to kill them, you know? You know what I mean? My life is really about staying sober and helping another alcoholic today. It has to be. It has to be. This has to be primary purpose in my life, you know, primary purpose. I've seen too many people, you know, get sober and everything comes back in their lives, and pretty soon, you know, they just stop going to meetings. And they stop actually working the steps. And I heard somebody say, slip is sobriety loses its priority. You know, all of a sudden, you know, the Laker game is more important, or she's more important, or he's more important, or even the kids are more important. You know, I got 3 beautiful kids and 2 grandkids now, and I just visited them in Santa Cruz. What a blessing that is for a guy like me. I remember being in Big Ed's, and my oldest son came in and begged me to go take him to Disneyland. Begged me. He was this little boy in Big Ed seeing his father on a bar stool drunk, you know. And I couldn't leave because I didn't have the power to go. And I had to tell him no, I couldn't do it. And I just visited him. And he's got a beautiful, beautiful daughter. And I got to actually be there and be a granddad to this kid and be a father to my son. And we have a really, I mean, this is priceless stuff. I mean, this is priceless stuff. These are gifts that no money can buy. I mean, these are gifts that only God could give me. And Alcoholics Anonymous has given me that. I'm just so very, very blessed to be a clean and sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. The simple things like that mean so much to a guy like me, you know. All the other stuff, the outside stuff, if it comes, it's nice. And if it doesn't come, you know, that's all right too. Because I know that I can come to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I can come. I can work the steps. You know, there is a solution. There is a solution in the steps. I'm absolutely convinced of it. You know, there's so much going on now. I hear so much, even in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, about antidepressants and so much stuff. You know, if we're clinically depressed, that's one thing. I'm not a doctor. But my suggestion, honestly, is to give the steps a shot first. Give the steps a shot. The most amazing miracles in the world have happened to me as a result of work in the steps. And I always find that when I go and get back into the steps and really seek a deeper level of understanding with a loving God in my life, not a God that's going to judge the hell out of me, or not a God that's going to, you know, that's going to beat me up if I don't measure up, you know, but a loving God in my life that's actually on my side, and a patient, loving God. I always find that if I can seek that in my life, I always can find peace. I had a really good friend of mine die recently, Steve. Steve was sober 35 years, you know, and just a blessing. So much stuff is going on. I have a brother-in-law that just found out he has prostate cancer. This good friend of mine, Steve, recently passed away. So much stuff. But you know, it's all part of life. It's all part of it. Life is going on, and there's so much birth happening now, and so much wonderful stuff going on at the same time as well, you know? And Alcoholics Anonymous is such an amazing place because we come in here, and even though all this stuff is going on, we can love all over one another and reach out our hand, especially to new people, and just say, you know, welcome home, you know, this is it. You find it here. You know, what you're looking for is really here, you know? That sense of ease and comfort that I sought, you know, in all that booze and all those drugs is actually in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. So anyway, I'm just super blessed to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and thanks for listening to me tonight. God bless.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And if that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.